What's up? June 30th, Edition Swishing podcast number 16, I believe. Sorry for the delay. I actually did record a solo podcast on a Friday night. That's how I spend my Friday nights at 10 o'clock. I come in the house and I sit at my table and podcast solo. But we figured it'd be better to get a couple of days in and wait around to see what happened with the NBA free agency and the NHL free agency. So we that solo podcast is somewhere in the archives. Probably won't see the light of day. So now we have Joe with me, so I'm not alone. I'm not flying solo.
Hey guys, what's up?
And we're going to hit all the topics. So we just lay out the show today for you. Obviously touch on Knicks, draft, NBA draft, free agency. We're going to touch on NHL draft and free agency tomorrow, July 1st for both leagues. So that's going to be really exciting if you're a New York sports fan. Rangers to make big trades, so we'll definitely go in depth about that. The Bruins are falling apart, so we'll talk about that kind of stuff. We're going to hit on the reaction to all things Phil Jackson, all things, from the Knicks taking Kristaps Porzingis, the fallout of that, and the guy hasn't even played a minute of NBA basketball, so we're going to touch on all that fun stuff that we've been dealing with, that I've been dealing with at work. And then at the end of the show, like always, so not like always, but once in a while we'll do a fun topic, and we'll do our True Detective first 2 episodes recap and looking forward.
Not sure that's going to be fun, but we'll get to that
Well, I want it to be fun.
Well, I mean, once we get into the semi-spoilers and discuss about the show, it's been good so far, but anybody who watched it this week kind of knows what we're going to talk about.
What do you mean by
The
that?
True Detective.
Yeah. What,
Episode 2, the end.
Well,
yeah.
We'll get to it, but it's good. Very similar ending, I guess, to Game of Thrones. So, we'll do our non-sports segment. Say that for the end. So, anyway, let me paint the scene of what happened. Was a Thursday night in the NBA draft. So, right leading up to the draft, we hired our $60 million team president, Phil Jackson, do about a couple round of interviews. He did one with the New York Times. He did one with ESPN and various others. And Phil comes out and says that, I did a great job last year, and how he was surprised that he didn't receive any votes for Executive of the Year because of all the cap space he cleared up for the Knicks, which and he was being dead serious. And he also explained the street term for the word "going" from his famous tweet about the teams that they're in the playoffs that shoot 3-pointers and how they won't win a championship. I'm guessing Phil Jackson did not watch who won the NBA title. Newsflash: it was the Golden State Warriors, who have possibly the best 3-point shooter of all time, Steph Curry. So, that's I don't know where Phil Jackson was going. I'm not sure if he was on his peyote out in Montana, like in his ranch, like he normally does. But it was very bizarre. And I'm not a Phil Jackson hater. If you listen to our podcast and seen our blogs on the site, you know that I'm a staunch supporter of him. I'm a supporter of that he needs time. I'm not a supporter of Jim Dolan, but I'm a supporter that Phil Jackson deserves X amount of time before he can call his career here a failure. I don't think it's fair for an executive to get about a year and change with a team that's obviously in the process of he did say they were going to be playoff contenders, but they're clearly in the rebuilding process. So anyway, Phil Jackson goes around and says that, and then Thursday, like I said, was the NBA draft. The first pick wasn't going to be a surprise. Everyone knew it was going to be Karl Anthony Towns, and I could. The second pick, the Lakers right there picking, because they have the history of the big men. They have Kareem, they had Wilt, they had Shaq, they had Dwight Howard for a bit, and Andrew Bynum in between. Like they had, their legacy is the big man. So everyone thought, okay, Jahlil Okafor from Duke is the obvious pick. Some people said possibly the showstopper, the future superstar. He's the highest, ESPN had that stat, best superstar potential was D'Angelo Russell. And they take him. They take D'Angelo Russell. Early in the day, I was in Philadelphia, actually, with my lovely girlfriend, and we stopped by the Philadelphia Sixers DraftKings draft party on City Hall. And I guess I should have thought that would have been an omen for what was to come. Because I guess you could say for most Knicks fans that the Sixers ruined their draft. And with the third pick, you think, okay, they took Embiid last year, who was probably the consensus best player. I think most would agree. Yes, he was hurt. The year before that, Nerlens Noel, again, also hurt, but the top big man in the draft clearly, and he had a pretty decent season. So you wouldn't think that they'd take a third big man 3 years in a row, and of course they did. With Jahlil Okafor on the board, they ripped the hearts out of all Knicks fans and took the Duke center. That would have been the story the headlines for the Knicks, for not tanking properly by winning those games versus the Hawks, and I forgot who else it was at the end of the season, to getting the 4th pick, and somehow Jahlil Okafor, who was probably the top pick for the past 8 months of the college season until very recently, until Towns overtook him. That would have been great. It would have been, very fitting. Would have been a great cornerstone of the franchise. Would have been a face to build around. Would have been, a point for Phil Jackson. Someone, he would finally look. People would be in favor of what he was doing, and they haven't been since he's been here. So the Sixers, because no one knows what Sam Hinkie and their plan is, take a third big man in 3 years. So they're going to, try the revolutionary, 5 center lineup, and they mess up the whole entire plan of the Knicks. So now you're at the stage where, okay, do the Knicks trade the pick at 4? Do they trade back for maybe an Eric Bledsoe and get the 13th pick? Do they look for maybe a massive deal with the Kings and look for Boogie Cousins? Who knows what they're doing? But everyone did not want to take Kristaps Porzingis, the Latvian, or I guess Mario Hezonja, the Croatian kid for that matter, because Knicks fans are just not ready to have a Bargnani 2.0 or a Frederick Weiss 2.0. They want a kid that they've seen, a kid they play that's they've watched play college basketball, someone who played in the States. Even Moutier, who didn't even play in the States, but at least he was a point guard. We haven't had a point guard since Mark Jackson. So people want to see a player like that drafted, and it doesn't go that way. And they take Kristaps Porzingis, and there's booze, and the fans, feel like they're going to riot and burn down MSG, and this Phil Jackson reign has to stop, and everyone goes crazy for him. It's easy to sit here and bash the Knicks. It's easy here to say, how can you pick a player like that? But the fact of the matter is, a lot of GMs said he's the best player. In years to come, you'll see that he develops into a superstar. You could even top NBA analysts, guys like Chad Ford and Adrian Wojnarowski, all said, next, great draft, awesome pick right there. So we'll see. Time will tell how this works out. With that pick immediately. So right after that pick happens, Phil Jackson gets interviewed by ESPN. Again, another bizarre interview saying they drafted him because he has a good family and because, when they asked him about why they took him, they said he has the highest risk reward, so he's unsure if he'll be a risk or not. Just stuff you don't say in an interview. Phil Jackson must need interviewing lessons because I don't get his angles on anything he says. It just makes no sense to me.
That's why he's the Zen.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to understand what he says.
That's
part of the aura. That's part of the lure.
He puts no confidence into the players you take. So
he's got that one style that he speaks in, and it's very the monotone, raspy. I
think I did a great job last year.
We think he's got a lot of potential, and that is it. That's all I'm going to give you in this interview.
Right. So then, of course, Carmelo Anthony. Then later on in the night they trade Tim Hardaway Jr. for Jerry Grant, which is a great pick, and we'll get to that in a second. And then Carmelo Anthony, we find out, leaks out that he's very upset. And Stephen A. Smith comes in and says, my sources tell me that Carmelo Anthony is very upset, and he's screaming on ESPN. And then Carmelo wants to win now, obviously. So fast forward to today, and the reports are they're going to be they're going to be looking to sign Greg Monroe and Aaron Aflalo and free agency to, I guess, help with this plan of Carmelo Anthony in the win now, the 31-year-old who opted to stay with the rebuilding Knicks for $120+ million instead of going to, say, Houston or, say, going to Chicago to win immediately, chose to stay here and knew this would be the process. This would be the whole plan of what had to happen because, you did play, half a season last year with a bunch of D-leaguers and a bunch of guys who were just not very good NBA players. So I'm not sure what was going through his head. Again, it looks more like Carmelo Anthony wants to be a brand, an international brand than a winning basketball player.
Well, you know what helps your brand?
Winning.
Being a winning basketball player.
Yeah. So
it helps a lot.
So this is where we stand right now, and obviously I spoke a while ago, so I want to hear your reaction to it, and then I want to build off of the draft itself, the players, both players he took, the three players he took. I want to break down their plans for free agency, and then I guess we could transition that into all of the NBA's free agency. We talk about the biggest non-story of the summer, which is LeBron James opting out, and the actual other big names that are out there, like LaMarcus Aldridge and potentially Jimmy Butler and DeAndre Jordan and so on and so forth. So
we've also been in the DeAndre Jordan talks too.
Right. So give me.
We've been
so
kind of wetting our feet a little bit everywhere.
I set up that whole entire the timeline from, I guess, pre-Thursday's draft up until now. I mean, we can say today. We'll count this as July 1st. It'll be tomorrow. So we're previewing free agency tomorrow. So if we went from the 26th all the way to now, so what do you make of all this?
I was a little skeptical of the Kristaps pick. I'll be honest. I believed that there were a couple of better fits on the board. If you had asked me before Thursday who would I have rather taken, Mude or Kristaps, I would have taken Mude. And I wasn't really the biggest fan of the Knicks actually grabbing Mude because I don't think we need a potentially elite point guard to run the triangle. That being said, I've gone over all of the YouTube videos that I can. I watched the Draft Express video. The Kristaps pick does not have the potential to be really terrible. I still don't like the pick, but I'm willing to give it a shot because here you have a 7'1", athletic, 220-pound kid from technically he's an unknown. Nobody knows anything about him except that he can shoot threes and he's pretty athletic. Now, 220 pounds, people will say to themselves, "Oh, that's very lean.
He's a beanball.
Put on strength.
He absolutely has to."
However, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of these kids come into the NBA and they're really not physically fit from day one. They're not physically ready to play the game from day one.
Absolutely.
So he will grow into his frame a little bit. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about more how he transitions his game defensively to the NBA because that's going to be the big difference. Clearly speaking, stretch fours have become where the NBA has gone. And to get a potentially elite difference maker at that position, a kid who's a really, really good three-point shooter, that was one of his biggest strengths coming in, is that his offensive game is probably very, very much close ready to the pro level. So offensively, he's probably not going to have a tough time adjusting because the triangle is a type of offense that gets you high-quality shots from pretty much everywhere on the floor. Everybody touches the ball.
But three-point land.
And three-point land. Everybody gets high-quality shots.
They don't. It de-emphasizes the three-point shot. So I think he's borderline. His three-point shot that he is very capable, like you said, Draft Express video. We've all watched it. Great, fantastic video. Yes, it's highlights. He was draining 5 threes in a row. But the triangle de-emphasizes the ability to shoot open threes. They want the mid-range too, which has become a lost art in the NBA. This is not the 90s with Michael Jordan and it's now where you have guys like Steph Curry and the Warriors winning championships by being a great three-pointing and shooting team. To me, and I'm glad you brought this up, but the whole fit with the triangle, when you alluded to that with the Mudiay, not selecting Mudiay, it's frustrating to a point where we look to get certain players because they fit in this type of offense than getting the best players available. I mean, I go into drafts. If I was a GM, and I'm sure if you were a GM
objectively, your number one priority is to get the best players you can.
Right.
Because if you get the most best players that you can, eventually you're going to end up like the Warriors
because Because in the NBA, what always wins?
Talent. We know that.
No, you're 100% right. And with the Moody, not taking Moody, I liked him a lot. A lot of players, a lot of people that I work with and read about like Moody a lot. They say they think he can be better than D'Angelo Russell. They think his defense already is better than Russell. He's like 6'5". He's great shape. Great athletic body. He could do everything. His shot will get a little bit better. But for a point guard who's that big and who will play defense and can create offense, like you said before, the NBA right now loves stretch fours. The NBA also loves lead guards who could do everything, who create. And the next thing they love besides those two positions is probably a rim protector. Those are the 3 most important things in the whole NBA right now. So I figured if the Knicks took him, they could figure out a way to, a shot can get better with time. But you have a guy who's an explosive elite athlete. But you could tell from the start they didn't want him. You could see how they didn't work him out. He was not really rumored to come here. I guess the rumor, yes, if they had a top 3 pick, they would have taken Towns, Okafor, or Russell, no doubt about it. Besides that, Porzingis did work out with us. I believe Hazonia did, and they also were interested in Justice Winslow, a guy you like a lot. I really didn't like a lot at all. He's undersized. He's not going to guard the 4s in the NBA like he did in college. He really wasn't consistent in college at all, besides a couple of games in the tournament. I think he has character issues because of skipping out on interviews. He purposely missed out on I believe it was Denver's or Sacramento's because he had it in his mind that he wanted to go to Miami. So he bailed on them. I don't like guys like that. I don't think he would have been a fit here. I mean, he would have played with the 3. That's Melo's position, the 3 or the 4. So I'm not really a big fan of taking him. I don't think he's a difference maker. I think in this draft you had to go big. You had to go guard. So anyway, back to the pick. Let's bring in this pick. The 4th pick was Porzingis, and he does have more bust potential. But I think a thing that's lost, I think, amongst people who I either call into my radio, my station, people who write stuff, and you see on Twitter reactions, is that I don't want to say it's racism or that a prejudice, but say if Karl-Anthony Towns played in Croatia or in Latvia, in Russia, in China, wherever, or Okafor or Russell did, or Winslow, anyone who you've seen in the college ranks play there, why is that any different than a guy like Porzingis who's played there? Because to me, I think that's professional basketball. It's grown men. Right. They're older. Right. So you're playing. I'm not sure the difference between many games is college versus overseas. I really don't know how the schedule is. I know the NBA schedule is by far the longest, but I don't know. But to me, it's about exposure and about if you perform well there. To me, look at Winslow's numbers per se from college. It wasn't they weren't these earth-shattering numbers. It was just that you saw a little bit of him, and he played at Duke. So it's like, okay, I've heard his name. It's fine. Even on the flip side of this, a guy like Jahlil Okafor, who was number 1, who was touted highly from the start of the season, and everyone watched him game by game by game by game. And then what happened at the end of the season? He slipped to the 3rd pick in the draft, not the 1st pick, and people criticize his game so much. So it's like overexposure and there's underexposure, and then guys, I guess, like Towns, who only played half a game, and guys like Winslow, who people don't really paid attention to in the tournament, they had that perfect amount of exposure. People fell in love with them. So it's not going to surprise me if Porzingis comes in this league and lights it up and scoring 25 a game and has this inside-outside game, hitting threes, he's scoring inside, he's very athletic, like you said. That wouldn't surprise me in the least if he comes in and dominates. Because why should we just assume because he played overseas he's not going to be a good NBA player? Look at every single team in the NBA right now. We could rattle off tons of names of guys who are European or played overseas and have been great. Bogut, for example, Andrew Bogut is Australian, played on the Warriors. You have guys like both Gasol brothers. Marc Gasol's going to be him or Aldridge, because they argue the best free agent in this class. Pau Gasol, who Phil Jackson even compared Porzingis to, he said that Porzingis is a more athletic Pau Gasol. Both Spanish guys. You have Mirotic in Chicago. You have Vucevic. You have Montejunas. You have Valanciunas. You have everyone in the Spurs. Literally everyone in the Spurs. There are so many guys that are now European and making a really big impact in the league. Dirk Nowitzki, the top 20 player in the NBA history. You have all these guys who are contributing. This is not the mid 90s anymore, or the early 2000s, where the new hot thing was to go get a European player no one's ever heard of, and they usually stunk. There not very many good European players came out of that era. But recently, in our more closer to our era, when we were growing up in our late teens, early 20s, we've seen a ton of European guys come over and been really, really good in the NBA. So I don't know why there's a stigma that he wouldn't be good. And I think on the flip side, like I said, if Towns played in Spain, people should treat him the same way they're treating Porzingis coming from Latvia to here.
It's almost like if you want to compare the college ranks in the United States to AAA, it's almost like the international leagues around the world are like, quadruple A. It's like probably small step up. You're playing against grown men. You're playing against more physically capable, stronger bodies. So I agree with you in that sense. And I think from the big men of the past, they had this anticipation that they were going to come in and become franchise players immediately. Whereas I think now we're looking at...
These guys are 19.
We're looking at the international ranks of players, and we're looking at it more from the sense of like, all right, this kid... We're looking at it more of a sense from a developmental kind of standpoint. Like when you look at the draft over the last couple of years, sure, Gasol, Nowitzki, Yao are the only 3 international all-stars taken in the lottery in its history. And while that's a very telling stat, you also just rattled off a bunch of players like Valanciunas, like Mirotic, like
Demo and down in Houston,
Dario Saric is going to come over. He's going to come over from the 76ers next year, and he's going to be a really, really nice impact forward. And then you even look at a lower tier guy like Thiago Splitter on the Spurs. Sure. He's not a dominant center, but he's a really nice key clog on a really good team.
On a championship team.
Yeah, on a championship team.
Absolutely.
You know,
And
he might get
he
might get his slack, but he'll score 10, 12 a game, and he'll provide solid minutes at center. So, and then you're missing even guys like Anderson Varejao. He can't stay healthy, but he's a contributing player.
LeBron loves him.
Yeah, absolutely, because of what he brings. A lot of these players are coming in here from a more developmental kind of perspective where they're not counted on to take over and be the top players on their team. Whereas I think if you look at the draft from the point where Dirk was drafted, I believe, in 98. And then Yao was drafted first overall in 2001. I think Powell went like 3 or 4 in 2002. So they were each taken in that 3 or 4 year span. And then you look at every international player who was taken after that. And Andrea Bargnani is the perfect example of this. They had the anticipation that they were the top option or the best option on the international team. So that was immediately going to come in and translate to becoming the best player on a team that they were drafted in the NBA. And that's not necessarily the case. And I think the way that Phil looked at this was that he saw Kristaps play very well against other grown men overseas. He played very well, and he's still developing into his frame. He's only 19, but he's 7'1", he's 220, and that's pretty good. Like, Dirk, I believe, weighed less when he was drafted. So if you look at the comparison pictures between Kristaps and Dirk, it's really not that far off. So I think Phil looked at this from the perspective where you could take Kristaps, you have Carmelo, you grab Jerry and Grant later in the draft, who I thought was one of the most NBA-ready guards in the draft.
Like
and
4 years,
I believe he was a lottery talent. I think a lot of people, especially like in the three-way deal, the Hawks and the Wizards, we won that trade easily because we traded a bench guard for a starting player, whether he sticks at the 1, whether he sticks at the 2. He's somebody who can run the offense.
Great NBA family background. He's played 4 years in Notre Dame. Great team recently. He's player of the year. He was the driving force between why that team went and won the ACC championship and then went to the Elite Eight. Immensely underrated player. Like, I truly believe he's a lottery talent. I don't know why he fell. They got to steal him. He could step in from day one. He could be one of the most impactful.
When you look at a player like Devin Booker or Trey Lyles or the guards that went before him, and then you look at Jerry and Grant and you compare both players, what separates them apart? Just because they played at Kentucky?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In that case, why didn't the Harrison twins, go earlier? When I watched tape at Kentucky, I thought the Harrison twins at the time looked much more dominant than those players did.
Right.
Like I said, it's all about overexposure. Last year, the Harrison twins would have been lottery picks.
Sure.
This year, they fell into the second round because
only one was taken.
Right. Only one was taken. Andrew. Because Andrew profiles more as an NBA type of guard. Aaron is more like
they're both like Grant and the twins are both like 6'4".
Yeah.
So you're right.
So you understand what I'm trying to say. But getting back to Kristaps, I think Phil took him knowing that, all right, I'll grab a rotation player at 19. I've got Carmelo. I'm going to end up getting 3 or 4 players in the end of free agency. So Kristaps is not going to be my number one option. However, his offensive game is probably pretty close to the point where you're ready to contribute on an NBA team. Whether you're the second or third option, he's not ready to do that yet, and everybody knows that. Plus, he's got to adapt to the defensive game. However, if you take Kristaps in and he impresses during the summer in the summer league, he impresses, in the preseason, and he earns a spot on the team, and he gets an opportunity to maybe come off the bench, maybe be the 7th, 8th guy and eased in. He's in a situation where he can win because he can learn the NBA game slowly, and he's got other players to rely on and learn off of.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a real test for Carmelo because I think this Knicks team will be much improved next year. The Atlantic Division sucks. It stinks. The Celtics have no idea what they're doing. They're hoarding guards for some reason. I have no idea.
Yeah, the same way they're hoarding big men, yeah.
The Raptors peaked this year. Their ceiling is maybe 50 wins. So until they make a move to go grab a top 10, 15, 20 player, they are what they are. The 76ers, we have no idea what they're doing. They're going to go big. The 76ers and the Celtics are polar opposites. Yeah. One's hoarding guards, the other one's hoarding big men. And the Brooklyn Nets, they're in limbo. They're going to be a borderline 500, maybe 42, 43 win team for the next year or two. And then they're going to bottom out because they don't have picks beyond 2017, 2018. So when you look at the Atlantic Division, it's there for the Knicks. They're going to go out. They're going to get better this season. And I think a lot of what has happened with criticizing Phil, a lot of that what is criticizing Fisher, that may come back to bite a lot of people in the rear end.
And that's the reason why you could go back in the tapes on our podcast. That's the reason why I refuse to bet future best Carmelo Anthony, because everything you just said about all those teams, I don't see any of them really a real championship threat. The 76ers are the 3 big men 3 years in a row, and they have no play from anyone else. There's no one who can play at those other positions. They trade away, every single year it's either Drew Holiday or Turner, or they trade away Michael Carter-Williams. There's no one there to lead the offense. And Joel Embiid, there's no other way to put it. They would have not taken Jahlil Okafor if Joel Embiid was 100% healthy. There's just no other way. You cannot sugarcoat it. He's hurt. He's going to need surgery.
If Embiid is healthy, they take Mude and we take Okafor. And then all of a sudden, we're looking to grab maybe like Aldridge in free agency. We're like looking to go all in and play like Aldridge.
Well, I think Aldridge would have been a play. Is still in play and would have been a play regardless of who we took in the draft. I don't think.
I truthfully believe every free agent is in play just because
it's New York and we have cap space.
Right. We have
Carmelo is there and the players need to get along with him.
I don't know if it's maybe 2 max players, but we could probably figure out a way to swing 2 max players.
That's a great segment. The next thing I wanted to get to, and to wrap up the Porzingis talk, we said about this is all about Melo. It's for Porzingis right now is to learn under Melo, and like you said, it's key for Melo to show him the ropes. When you mentioned before like Bargnani getting drafted, he was supposed to be the guy. He doesn't have the drive, Bargnani. You could ask any player. He's hurt. He doesn't want to push himself. You see that this year. You can see what he did in Toronto, and then when he was healthy in Toronto, he actually put up some good numbers once in a while. Right. Porzingis right now is not going to be relied on as being the guy. Everyone knows he's a couple years away, despite, like you said, his NBA offensive game being ready, because he has a really advanced offensive game. He can score inside. He can score outside. He can shoot the 3. He's super athletic. He could run the floor. He could handle the ball like crazy, almost like Anthony Davis, like running up and down the court. He's going to be a very good scorer in this game. And you have a guy like Carmelo Anthony, who's an elite scorer, a superstar, who he's going to take the load. He's going to be the burden. We mentioned Jerry Grant. If he runs the point, another guy who's very experienced, he's not going to be afraid of the NBA. He's used to the NBA game. His father and his uncle both played there. He played on a really good Notre Dame team. We are going to sign free agents. I don't know who the free agents will be. We're going to sign them. Yeah. And right now, it's up to Melo, like you said with Aldridge. It's up to Melo. You came here. You wanted to stay on this team. It's your job to recruit. It's your job to go out there with your dumb hats on and you want to be buddy with everyone in the league. Go and call Marcus Aldridge. Go and call DeAndre Jordan. Go and call Greg Monroe. Go and call whoever you want. Marc Gasol. Go and call LeBron. I don't even care if it's a waste time. I know it's a waste time. Go and call Kevin Love too. I don't care. Just say, hey, look, you want to come to New York? I'm here. I want to win. We have Phil Jackson. This thing's going to turn around. This Porzingis kid's going to be pretty damn good. Do it. This is why we signed you. You want to be a tastemaker and a cultural icon? Go and show then see how much people respect you. Go around and make phone calls. That's the only way to put it.
My last biggest point, I agree with everything you just said, is that I think if there's one thing to take away from the Knicks draft, I think they drafted 2 very mature players. And I think that gets overlooked a lot, especially in the NBA. But the maturity level of both of the players that we took is really off the charts. Like, Kristaps had the mindset from the beginning, like he was ready to come into the NBA, and he didn't want to just come to any team. He wanted
everything right.
He wanted the Knicks.
Everything right.
He wanted the Knicks. Like, he said, like, I want to come to New York. So to me, that says I've got a chip on my shoulder, and I'm gonna he's a hard worker as it is. And one of the biggest things that Chad Ford and everybody who would Woj, everybody who had praised this kid, the one common denominator that they said is that he's a hard worker and he learns quickly. And I like that. And it's really a sign of a mature player to want the challenge. So I think he's going to work hard and I think he's going to get it. Sure. And in the sense of Jerry and Grant, not only is he a mature player, not only does his game fit in the NBA, but he's a winner. And when you look at those combinations, I truthfully believe that maybe Kristaps is not ready to be a starter. Could be a contributor.
Doesn't need to be a starter.
Right, it doesn't need to be a starter. I think Grant can be a starter.
Sure.
And I think the biggest thing is that by Phil getting 2 mature players, he got 2 rotation players for this year, which I think is very, very, very important.
I mean, they both will see significant time this year.
No, I believe
Grant probably more than Porzingis, but that's the best thing about Porzingis. You're not pressuring him. You're not pushing him to do anything. Anything that he gives you is gravy, and that's a great part of the season and help his development, because you have Melo. Melo is the guy. Porzingis won't be the guy until he's there one day. And the thing is, too, I think he will be the guy in the future. I think his offensive game is that great that you will look to him to score, put up Dirk Nowitzki type numbers at that position. I don't want to compare him to Dirk. He could be his own player, but he will put up those.
I don't know if he has the star power to be the go-to option on the team, but
I think
I could see him developing into a really good.
Put it this way, from Dirk Nowitzki can't handle the ball up and down the court the way that Kristaps Porzingis can. Right. Dirk has a lead shot.
That's another thing too. Kristaps can run on the fast break.
Run.
Dirk can't run on the fast break.
Not at all. It's a half court.
He's coming coming into here as one of the most athletic projects. Well, he's not really a project, but he's one of the most athletic. One of the most athletic international talents we've ever seen.
Look, they said top GMs in the league, not new GMs in the league with bad teams. Top GMs in the league like this player. Ramona Shelburne from ESPN said the Lakers really contemplated taking him at 2. That's how much they really thought highly of Kristaps Porzingis.
And they took Russell, so they didn't even
they
didn't even think about Okafor. It was probably between Russell and the risk of taking Kristaps.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they said to themselves, "Let's go with Russell. Let's go with the safe option.
Because
We're going to need a replacement for Kobe. Russell will play this year. He'll take his bumps, but he's going to be an excellent player. He can play on both ends of the floor." And we've got Kobe Bryant, one of the best winners in NBA history, to try to help back him up.
Right.
So it was all the ingredients were there.
No, exactly, and that's the best thing about him. We don't know what his potential is, but we see the skills and the tools that he will have in the future. So it's going to be exciting, and once the kind of the drama and the outbursts calm down, I feel like a lot of people see where. See why we took this player and why we made the pick that we did, and people seem to kind of like his game, like what he's going for. The problem is that Melo is 31. Melo is his body's breaking down. The Knicks, they really don't have a window. But the other thing is with Porzingis, he's 19. He's years away. So Porzingis is years away. Melo's years are winding down. So it's in win now mode, and that loses to the back of the free
that's
agency.
What free agency is for.
And
you nab out to free agents. All right, let's play a game. Free agency starts tomorrow. We know the rumors that
you can count a follow in Monroe. You could say a follow in Monroe where blue and orange. People now are saying, "Oh my God, Aaron Aflalo, he's really going to be the savior." You know what I hate? I hate about the dumb media. When Aaron Aflalo left to go to Portland to replace Wesley Matthews when he got injured, people, Portland was a playoff team, a very good playoff team, high seed in the West. And they said getting a guy like Aaron Aflalo would be awesome. It's an awesome fit, veteran guy, good defender. He could shoot, not as well as Wesley Matthews, but he could fit in perfectly. Great fit. And the Knicks want to sign him, and all of a sudden it goes, oh my God, the Knicks being the Knicks, signing this player. Aflalo stinks. The narrative changes because people just love to hate New York, and it's boring. It's just boring. Like, think of something new. Like, enough already. It's over with.
That's why people don't like the Kristaps pick, because the Knicks made the pick.
Yeah, of course, the Knicks. Like, I'm so, for guys like you said before, like Chad Ford and Woj, praise to those guys for being, original and saying what they really feel, not just doing the typical, I'm going to blast the Knicks because I can, because, Phil Jackson's an idiot. Everyone knows that. Yeah, Melo's an idiot. Phil Jackson's an idiot. Great. Enough with it's just the same old. I'm so bored of it. It's tiring. Like, enough. Think of something new. Be real. See what Aflalo has done for teams. See what he contributes with. He's not going to be the star player of the Knicks. No one ever says he's coming here as a star. We have money to spend. We need players to fill holes, and that's what he's doing for only a couple years. He's going to come in with Monroe because the Knicks are being realistic because we don't think we're going to probably end up getting Love or LeBron or LaMarcus Aldridge or Gasol. So all other players are restricted. Guys like Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. So we're being realistic. For once, that's a good thing. And getting guys like Greg Monroe and Aflalo, they might be B-level free agents. But you know what? Greg Monroe averaged double. He's like 25, 26 years old. He could play the 4 and the 5. He's the best player.
Monroe has a lot of potential.
He's the best player Melo has played with in his career. Write that down. Write it down right now. He is the best player that Melo has ever played with. He's a borderline all-star. He didn't even hit his prime. He's a young kid. He's a big man. He's the average double-double. He's the best player that Melo's ever played with. Not an old Iverson, not an old Chauncey Billups. Nay, get out of here. No one on the Knicks. Not JR. No one. He is the best player that Melo's ever played with, bar none.
Before we came on the podcast, I compared Monroe to Al Jefferson. But the thing is, Al Jefferson is kind of a little bit of a stiff. Like, he'll go into the post and he'll stay there. Monroe, he's got some mobility to him. He could score, and he could score every single way a big man can. Yeah. He could post you up. He could run on the fast break. He could hit a 15-foot shot. He's a very, very versatile big man, and he can pass too.
Yeah, and people say his defense things. I don't care about defense. No one cares about defense. There's like 7 good defenders in the NBA. Everyone knows they are. It's Jimmy Butler. It's Kawhi Leonard. It's Tony Allen. It's like Tyson Chandler.
Right.
Like, no one enough. Like, no one cares about defense. You play defense when you have to. Whatever. Like, at this point, it's about scoring points. It's about running the triangle offense. It's about getting an actual big name player, a guy who can contribute offensively. Greg Monroe averaged double-double. That is it. That's all you need to know about it. He's not in his 30s. He's in his mid-20s. He's the best player Carmelo Anthony has ever played with in his career. And every Knicks fan should be happy about getting him. Because what do you want? A guy like DeAndre Jordan? DeAndre Jordan's best option.
Aflalo played with Melo in Denver.
They did, yeah. They got along.
They got along really well. And your boy, Isola, tweeted this yesterday about the relationship that Aflalo and Melo had when they were in Denver. And when they were together, they went to the conference final. So
right.
So I mean, when you look at the Knicks, I mean, Aflalo's not going to cost max money. He's going to probably cost like a solid mid-level, like a mid-tier kind of contract. Monroe probably will get the max, but a max from Monroe is not like an astronomically high max that like LaMarcus Aldridge is going to get because he's only been in the league for so many years.
Yeah.
So
and look, we had to first of all, coming into free agency for the most of the year, no one thought Aldridge was going anywhere, and no one thought Gasol was going anywhere. It looks like Gasol still isn't going anywhere. Aldridge right now is he met with the Knicks, and so did DeAndre Jordan. Would I love LaMarcus Aldridge? Sure, but do you know how old LaMarcus Aldridge is? He's 30 years old.
Right.
He's coming off a thumb injury. We'll see, is that the way you want to go? Do I think Aldridge would be good for another 3, 4, 5 years? Sure, he'll be great. He's an all-star. He's a phenomenal player.
His game is going to age really well because he hits the mid-range.
Sure,
too,
I loved him. I loved him.
He's the only person who does it on a consistent basis.
And I loved him since his Texas days. He's probably the best player in Blazers history. He has a lot of records. If he wants to move on to be in the spotlight, he doesn't want to be. Fine, that's great. But he never really. He didn't strike me as a guy who was looking really to be interested in New York. He's a Dallas guy. He'll probably go back home to Dallas. He'll probably meet. If the Spurs want to make a play at him. And then there's always the option of him going to the Lakers. The Lakers want to look for another big man. I don't think things with Sacramento will work out with the trade that Sacramento wants for Cousins. They want to take Russell. They want to take Clarkson and Julius Randle. That's a lot. That's a huge overhaul. And then what are you really left with? Kobe's going to leave after the next year, and then your team is basically just Cousins and nothing else. I think the Lakers are in a much better position to just keep what they have and let DeMarcus Cousins stay in Sacramento unless their price lowers. So I think they're a major player for LaMarcus Aldridge. You had to put a gun to my head. Am I going to say LaMarcus Aldridge come to the Knicks? I'm going to say he's not. I'm going to say he'll end up somewhere in Texas. I think he'll end up in Dallas or San Antonio.
I think he's going to end up in San Antonio. Here's my big thing. A lot of people still think Dallas is a very attractive option for free agency, and I disagree with that. I think Ellis is a free agent.
Ellis is gone.
Chandler's a free agent. They're both gone. Rondo, the experiment failed. He's gone. Now all of a sudden you look at all you have is Dirk and an overpaid Parsons. So when you look at Aldridge, you're thinking to yourself, how many years does Dirk have left? And is Chandler Parsons really going to be a good number 2 option? So if you're Aldridge, your objective is to lure another one of those second tier guys like Millsap or Monroe or
play devil's advocate. Like I said, he's a Dallas guy. It's one.
Right.
Playing under Rick Carlisle is a phenomenal coach. Is another reason why. I mean, he won.
There's a lot of reasons.
He won an NBA
title
just with Dirk alone. It shows you how great of a coach he is. And number 3 option is I think players honestly like playing for Mark Cuban, and it might be a fun franchise to play for. Your hometown, great owner, great coach, and then you could be the guy. You could be the guy that he's not battling with Lillard because he'll just replace Dirk once Dirk is gone. And Dirk at moments, but Dirk is slowing down, but he has some good moments. So yeah, I don't think Aldridge is a realistic option to come here. The next big name would be DeAndre Jordan, I guess. I'd honestly rather have Greg Monroe.
I'd rather have Greg Monroe too. DeAndre Jordan he's a solid rim protector, good on the fast break.
He catches lobs from Chris Paul. That's his offensive game. That's it.
Right.
That's his offense. He literally.
I don't
think
DeAndre
bad.
Jordan is the kind of player you can run an offense through.
No way.
With Phil here.
Yeah, not the triangle at all. Man.
Right. You can't run an offense through DeAndre Jordan.
He has no offensive ability whatsoever.
Right.
He's very lucky he's playing with the best point guard in the game with Chris Paul, and he's very lucky he has a good coach like Doc Rivers who can put him in the best spot he possibly could be in. And the guy was so bad at free throw shooting, they wanted to change the rules of the league for him. No thanks. I don't want him to be a disaster in New York. Can you imagine the headlines of him going 2 for 19 at the free throw line? It's miserable. It would be miserable. And I don't want any part of it.
You know what you're getting with Jordan. Jordan has to be.
He asks for a ton of money, too. I want no part of that.
He fits comfortably with that Clippers team. It's nice.
It's a phenomenal. If he's smart,
CP3, Blake, 1-2.
If he's smart, he stays. If he wants to go to LA, I mean, it's going to be a disaster. I don't give a crap about any of those other teams. I would send an email to all the other teams, the Lakers, whoever else wants to sign him. Don't. It's a big mistake. I don't know what people see in him. You see his offensive limit. It's just like I don't know. I don't know. He has those flashy dunks. People watching too much SportsCenter, too much Top 10 on ESPN because he's not a player I want. The biggest non-story of the summer is LeBron James opting out. I know Carden has been saying that it makes all the sense in the world for LeBron to come to New York. I mean, there's no chance he's going.
No, he's staying in Cleveland. The only reason he opted out, I think, is because
to force their hand and make him re-sign the players he wants.
Right,
and which is smart. And when you're the king, you have the ability to do that. He is the team owner, the team GM, the team coach.
He's not going to leave. He just wants to ensure that he's got the best team around.
Do you think Love's going to stay? That's the real question.
If I'm Cleveland, Honestly, what I saw from them without Love, I don't think they need him because I feel like
they signed Tristan Thompson. He's a better fit.
I think he's a better fit.
Defensively.
When I look at team building, I look at what is your value related to your cap hit. Because it's a cap league. Every league is, besides baseball, is a cap league. That's the biggest question you have to ask yourself. And would you rather have Tristan Thompson making 60% of what Kevin Love makes, or would you rather have Kevin Love and the potential of losing a guy like Tristan Thompson? See, Thompson's more of like a glue starter on a good team. He scored in double figures. He's a very good rebounder. And
best offensive rebounder in the game.
And he's probably like a really, really, really good modern day NBA 4. Oh, sure. He's the kind of guy you want. You like out of your 4, you want a guy who can rebound the ball a lot, and you want like an offensively versatile center.
If LeBron does anything in this NBA Finals, is that he could literally play all positions on the court, and he could play with a bunch of scrubs. He could play with me, you, and 2 other our friends, and bring a team to the NBA Finals. So you don't really need to overload with the superstars, with guys who need the ball in their hands. If Kevin Love is not scoring points, he's essentially useless because he doesn't really do much on the defensive end. He's not going to play like Tristan Thompson. He gets rebounds, but Tristan Thompson gets rebounds too for less money, and he does the dirty work. Kevin Love is not going to do any of that. With a healthy Kyrie Irving, and you just shore up their bench and get better role players. I think. JR
and Shump were good. It was just that at the end when they got so hurt, they were counted on to be the second and third best players on the team, and they can't do that.
Right, but I'm saying, but if you could make the team Mozgov, Thompson, the 5 and the 4, you have LeBron, and then you have Kyrie, and then you can plug in whoever at the 2, and you shore up your bench where you have guys who can. The problem was they didn't have a backup point guard. Dellavedova had to come in. You have Dellavedova. You have player B, player C. Then
if you start Kyrie and Shumpert, and then you start LeBron at the 3, you start who's the 4.
I said
Thompson.
Resign Thompson, then
Thompson
have Mozgov.
And Mozgov. That's 4 and 5. And you have solid, balanced, solid, good starting 5, and then your bench would be.
They have to get players because they sign bench players. Well, you have Dellavedova, and you have to sign whoever else. Right. And that to me is the favor for the NBA championship because you saw LeBron could do alone, but you have a healthy Cavs with a better bench. Right, a healthy Cavs team with a better bench. That's the finals favorite because LeBron did all that alone. And plus having Kyrie, who's a superstar in his own right, and then you have your defensive guys. You have Mozgov who could put up 20 and 10, and then you have enough guys coming off the bench to give LeBron a break. That's really what you need.
Right.
How about a guy like Dwayne Wade? Do you think Dwayne Wade would come to Cleveland?
Dwayne Wade is funny. He's a funny guy.
I think he might. I think he might too. I think he's going to follow LeBron.
I really, really, really do because at this point he realizes that he's the best player in Heat history. I read a stat the other day that was mind-boggling. Since Dwayne Wade entered the league, he has never been the highest paid player on the Miami Heat.
It's like a Dirk stat. Dirk's like, that's pretty good.
And when you think about it, it's like he's made his money, but for him to never be the highest paid player, it's really interesting because he's played with Shaq, he's played with LeBron, he's played with Bosh. I think he took less money. Well, they all took less money when they did the team up. But it goes to show you that he's really underrated historically. I feel like he never gets enough credit. And I think at this point in his career, he's earned the flack where he's won, 3 titles in Miami?
One with Shaq, or essentially alone, and he won the 2 with LeBron, yeah.
So he's won 3 titles. He's one of the 5 best shooting guards in NBA history. He's the best player in Miami Heat history. Did everything for that franchise. He could have left in 2010. He could have very, very easily have jumped ship to Chicago. LeBron could have very easily gone somewhere else or stayed in Cleveland, and the entire landscape of the NBA could have been way different.
Good point.
But he said, I'm going to stay in Miami, and I'm going to bring these guys with me, and you're going to come to me. I'm not going to go anywhere else. He brought them together. They went to 4 straight finals. They won 2 finals. And him and Pat Riley have been attached to the hip since he came into the NBA. He's a smart player. Like I said, I think he's underrated. I think he's earned that option at this point of his career where he can kind of look to see what else is on the table for him.
I think in Miami's smart. They don't sign him.
No, I think they're ready to move on. Like, Dang's a free agent.
Well, he opted in.
And
they want to give big money to Goran Dragic.
Right, which didn't happen.
It's on the table still. I think they're the favorites to re-sign him. I think you're better
Bosh
going
is
forward.
still there.
Right.
Winslow is still there. I mean, there's still enough in Miami for them to be a competitive team.
I think so. I think they're better off not spending money on Wade. Wade's always injured. He can't play a full season anymore. What is he going to give you? What are stats for Wade? 15-5?
Right.
And how many games is he playing? 50, 60
Right.
games? Possibly max?
Yeah, I think they
It's not worth
drafted
it.
Winslow to replace Wade.
Oh, sure.
But in the end, that might be a good thing because now you have Dwayne Wade's money where you can go out and spend it on a player or two who may be a better fit.
Absolutely. That's just the way it is. And they're getting McRoberts back. They're a better team.
They may very like Pat Riley may go into Mafia Don boss mode and like go out and end up getting ending convincing Dragic all right, stay here, and maybe going out and overpaying for a guy like Millsap or Draymond Green to play next to Bosh. It could very well happen. I mean, I'm not going to count Pat Riley out in anything at this point,
right?
Because
he'd be smart if he went elsewhere. I agree with that. I think that it's time for them to move on. He's not going to give you much offense. He's not going to play the full season. Your best bet is to start rebuilding for the future. The LeBron era is over with.
Right.
Like you break up with LeBron left already. Time to break up with Wade. He gave you the guys a ton of great years, won you 3 titles. He's the best player in your history, like you said. Probably the 4th best shooting guard of all time, 4th or 5th. He did everything he possibly could. It's over with. Time to move on. Things are changing. You got to, most people think of stealing the draft with Winslow. If you re-sign Dragic, who I think is a great point guard, Bosh will come back healthy. Put up
healthy Bosh is an all-star too. A lot of people forget
so
that.
that's a good team right there. You have McRoberts coming back, like I said. You Lou Aldeng opted in. You could go out and call all the free agents and show up at the bench. It's not a bad team in the East. So I think their best bet is to just let Wade walk and to not even really do. Yeah, they'll have to do business with him because he's doing Wade and he'll come to them first. But I think, it's their best bet is to let him go. And you mentioned Draymond Green. I think before we go out of the free agency talk, with 2 final questions, do you think any of the restricted guys are going anywhere? Because I think if Draymond Green went anywhere, it's back to home in Detroit. I don't think he's going anywhere besides that.
Detroit would be a really, really, really nice fit, especially after they got Brandon Jennings back on track. They've got Stanley Johnson. They got Andre Drummond, who's ready to be one of the 3-4 best centers in the league. He would fit in very, very nicely with that team. And Stan Van Gundy and Jeff Bauer, former head coach of Marist. I love touting that. He was our head coach for a year, and then he went back to the NBA. He was too smart to stay at us and be our head coach. But yeah, they're very, very basketball savvy guys running that organization now, and they're very close. They're on the cusp. Draymond Green would push that team into the top 5, 6, potentially in the East. Because you look at it, Cleveland is still going to be Cleveland with LeBron. Washington is probably ready to take that next step. Even if they lose Paul Pierce, there's still enough pieces there.
I'm going to the East, but do you actually think they're going to leave? Like the restricted free, and Jimmy Butler also was rumored.
I think Butler might leave.
So he's want to take a 1-year deal in LA and then sign max money next year when the TV deal kicks in.
Yep. When I look at a guy like Jimmy Butler, he strikes me as the guy who's just itching to leave. Because if he wanted to stay in Chicago, he would have signed already. Because he could have signed for the max at any point, and he's waited for this point. So the writing is on the wall in Chicago. It's there's only a matter of time before Derrick Rose really just falls off a cliff. He played really well last year, but that time is coming. Gasol's nearing the end of his career. We don't know what the hell happened to Joakim Noah. So it's we have Mirotic and Butler, who are our 2 core players going forward. And if you look at Jimmy Butler, he's saying to himself, damn, I'm on a good team, but I'm blocked by Cleveland.
He's better than himself every year, and he's getting improved every year.
So at this point, he's probably saying to himself, how could I get the most money? So Chicago wants to sign him to a multi-year deal, and that's not what he wants to do. So I think he leaves.
Do you think the Knicks sign anyone outside of Monroe or Afflalo? Do you think there's a surprise signing coming up in the Knicks?
Well, we've been linked to David West. We've been linked to DeAndre Jordan. I think it's very possible we go out there and end up having I think Zen could very well get 3 free agents, 3 of the main 15 free agents.
But I think it'll be West, Afflalo, and Monroe being the best of the 3.
Yeah.
I think that'll be it, and call it a day. Which then I think it makes the Knicks a playoff team.
No, absolutely, it makes the Knicks a playoff team. The problem I think with David West, and obviously I solo tweeted this too because he's always on everything, is that he's afraid that it makes the Knicks a slower team. But do I want to?
He works the high post though for the triangle. It fits a lot, and he's a good locker room guy.
Yes, he's a very good locker room guy. He's a tough guy. He's a gritty guy. He's a guy that playoff teams usually have.
Knicks fans want. They're used to Oakley and Mason type players, and Ewing type players. They want
bingo, absolutely. So I'm okay with it because West would probably be the only
What is he staying for? A year or 2?
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah, it's like a transitional kind of move. It's a move that helps us win now, but at the same time, grow the guys that we need to grow, and kind of to mesh everything together in the short term.
What winning is again.
A guy I really want, who I think is going to be out of our salary range, is Millsap.
I don't want any part of Millsap. He's already 31.
I know, but it would be like Wes. It would be like a 2-3 year kind of situation. I like Millsap a lot. I think his game is a really great fit here, but like I said,
I think if you get Monroe, it makes him a wash. Monroe's a younger version of him, and I think
Monroe plays the 5 and he's bigger. So
right,
if we're deciding between Paul Millsap and Greg Monroe, the answer is Greg Monroe 10 times out of 10.
But Melo plays his best basketball at the 4 too. And
yes.
So that's the tricky part. Is like, where does Millsap really fit in?
A big thing is that if you have a small ball lineup and you have you have Melo and Monroe playing the 4 and the 5. You're looking at a situation where probably all 5 of your guys on the floor could score, and 4 of them can hit the 3-point shot.
Yeah, and 0 can defend.
And 0 can defend. But if that's what it comes down to, I mean, last year we watched a team give up over 100 points every game, but struggle to score. So now maybe we're looking at a situation where they can score 110, but maybe they give up 100. To me, it doesn't matter. So long as we get a product this year that was better than the product that we had last year, which is going to happen because we're going to sign 2 really good players. We got 2 good players in the draft. We have a top 12, 15 player in the NBA. It's going to happen. Last year was probably an aberration, but it was probably something that needed to happen. So I feel like we've talked about the Knicks enough.
You want to talk about the other team that plays in MSG?
Yeah.
The Rangers?
Yes,
the big surprising
we need to talk about NHL free agency before I lose my mind.
Moving Carl Hagelin and a pick to Anaheim Ducks for Emerson Edom and picks. Hags wanted around 4.5. And he was
too much for a third
and it's too much for a third line guy. It's too much for a guy who hasn't scored 40 points in the season. Too much for a guy who can't score 30 goals. But Hags was a fan favorite. I feel like the Rangers have so many fan favorite guys. These guys who are not really overly good at anything, really.
Well, they draft and they develop their own guys, which is something they never used to do.
Right, and Hags is a guy everyone here loved, and he's a phenomenal skater, great two-way player, great penalty killer, forecheck, everything, lightning fast, but not the big-time scorer that you really need, or not a guy you want to pay almost $5 million for. And I understand what Saylor was doing there with that move, and I think the return he got was pretty good because one, we got a couple extra picks, and the kid we got, Emerson Edom, I shouldn't say kid, he's the same age as me. Emerson Edom is 23 years old. He's a big kid. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's 210, 215. A power forward whose offensive game really hasn't begun to develop yet. Last year was really his first kind of full season in the NHL. Only played for a really good Western Conference team with the Ducks. I think that Edom, it was a former first-round pick too, has top 6 potential, and is a big body, a guy we could put in front of another big body to go along with Kreider and Hayes. I think he'll add some grit. He'll add some scoring. He's very skilled. There's that famous, video of him, the Vine or whatever, when he does that one-handed goal, splitting the D. So he has some skill, has a lot of size, and his potential is, he hasn't really kind of cracked that yet. So I'm very, very excited about the trade. And as always, Glenn Saylor, any trade he makes, he's going to do all right in that. There's no denying that. The one good thing about him being our GM is that you could trust any trade he makes because it'll be good. The signings in the past, not so great, but definitely the trades, we always kind of win on that. So I'm a really, really big fan of moving Hagelin for Edom, just because we were going to be a little strapped for money. It gives a couple extra dollars to re-sign the players we need. Next year we have to keep, I believe, Hayes and Stepan and guys like that. So those are must keeps. Hagelin was expendable, so I wish him the best. No ill will towards him at all. Yes, he deserves to get paid. Just when you look at the return on the investment, I think Edom will be a little bit higher. He's also a restricted free agent, but it'll probably cost a little bit less. So I think it's a good move all around. Got a couple extra picks. Rangers always make use of their mid-round picks. Most of our players on the team now were mid-round picks who turn into pretty good players. The other big trade that everyone knew was coming was trading Ken Talbot. And, there were rumors that we're going to get a first-round pick for him, but we had to take on contracts or give up something extra, and I wouldn't want to do that at all. So we traded him for three mid-round picks. We got a second-rounder in there, I believe. Again, I trust the Rangers in their trades they're going to make because we're a very good drafting team as of late. So you moved another thing was we had no picks because of all the trades we made recently. So we traded a goalie, a backup goalie, who won't play nearly as much as for the Rangers as he did this year because I don't really see Henrik Lundqvist massive injury happening again. At least hope it doesn't. Knock on wood. So we got the most out of him. He kept us alive. He was what made us the number one seed, won the President's Trophy. So give all the credit in the world to Cam Talbot for the season he had. He's a phenomenal goalie. He's going to have a great career. He's like 28. He's going to get paid next year. He's going to get a ton of money in a contract, and he deserves it. He was awesome. He won on the big stage. He was a great story. We found him from, I believe, Alabama Huntsville's program, and he was great for us. But we got a good turn on that. Hopefully, the picks turn out to be something special. We loaded up the farm again, which we really needed to do. So looking back on both those trades, the two trades you kind of had to make, and I liked how both of them turned out.
I like how they both turned out, too. I think Etem's got a lot of talent. Yeah. He reminds me a lot of Benoit Pouliot when we signed him a couple of years ago, except he's way younger. He's only 22. And when you're looking at the Ducks, they're one of those teams like the Rangers, like the Blackhawks, who have that strict system in place that they develop their players, their own players eternally really, really well. But at the same time, they play every single player on that team is a good two-way player. Like they went out and they traded for Ryan Kessler last offseason. They got Jakob Silfverberg and the Bobby Ryan deal. They got Nate Thompson. They got Alexei, who's going to leave in free agency. They had Raquel. So they were a very deep squad, and all those players are really good two ways. Etem's defensive game really hadn't developed into where the Ducks felt reliable playing him in a role greater than third or the fourth line. So they felt like Hagelin was more or less more of a sure thing. So they'll pay Hagelin, they'll cut ties, and they'll risk losing Etem, who will probably kind of thrive here because I think of Vigneault's system a little more open, a little more favorable for players like Etem who are more natural scorers. So I think he'll start out on the third line and he'll slowly work his way up, and eventually he'll get to the point where he could very well be in the top 6 2 or 3 years from now.
Put in front of them the power plays. Yeah, it'll be
it's a really good lateral move for both teams.
And it shows you just
the Ducks needed somebody a little more reliable, and the Rangers have an abundance of players.
Need more scoring in the playoffs.
Jesper Foss replaces Hagelin on the penalty kill. The Rangers consistently lose penalty killers, and then guys in the media say, their penalty kill is not going to be as good next year, and then it's always good. Yeah. So it's a lot of it comes down to having the best goalie on the planet, but a lot of it comes down to the system that they have in place, and their system for bringing kids along the right way through the minor leagues, coming from Hartford to here. They don't bring anybody who's not ready defensively. They purposely wait for players to develop so that they're ready defensively. You look at Kreider, you look at JT Miller. They were yo-yoed between the minor leagues and the Rangers because they weren't ready defensively. So when you look at Etem, I think he's further along than they were, than to the point of being yo-yoed. But I don't think he's going to start out. I think the top 6 is primarily set. It's Kreider, Stepan, Nash, Brassard, Zuccarello, and probably Miller. But if they want, they could very easily juggle a couple of those forwards back and forth. Like they could easily go out and sign a low-cost right winger or move Jesper Foss to play with Kreider and Stepan on the first line like they did in the postseason, and probably put together a line of like Etem, Hayes, and Miller. The Rangers, one thing that they have a lot of is balance and depth. So I'm not worried about the deal. I loved Hagelin. I have his autograph. He was one of my favorite players too. At the end of the day, it's a cap league. You don't pay $4 million for a third-line player. You don't pay $4 million to a guy who can't score 40 points in a season, whose goal max is probably 15 goals a season.
Right.
So at the end of the day, the Rangers don't get better. The Ducks don't necessarily get better. It's a lateral move, but it's a move that helps out both teams.
I disagree. I don't think it's a lateral move. I think anytime that you have a player, again, it goes back to me hating defense, but I think that anytime you get a player who's a first-round pick who has that body size, and it has the offensive potential to be much greater than what Hagelin is. I think it's an upgrade for the Rangers. How do you win hockey games? You score enough goals. The Rangers' problem in the playoffs wasn't scoring enough goals. You got a guy like Edom, who it shows you also that how important size really is in the NHL. Unless you're an elite talent, a guy like St. Louis was, or maybe Patrick Kane, it shows you unless you have that insane skill, the size really doesn't matter because it shows you how that Hagelin couldn't create for himself. Edom can create for himself. Edom can score, take on people. He can control the puck. He could score goals anywhere on the ice. He could score in front of the net. I think that has a lot of value to him. I think his game will develop here. The Rangers, they lacked big bodies. They got a couple, this past season. They showed you how good they were. It showed you how good Kreider was and Hayes was for us. I think size really does matter. I think that having, a guy whose potential hasn't really started yet because last year again was really his first kind of full season, and I think he'll get better. Like you said, Vigneault's a phenomenal coach. His offensive game is very, very open. His system here, so I like what Edom could bring. I think he brings more to the table offensively than Hagelin, and like you said, we could always find players to plug in defensively for the PK and stuff like that. So I'm not really too concerned with losing him. But I think anytime you come out, Anaheim gave up on very good offensive potential for a guy whose offensive ceiling is already, like you said, a 15-goal ceiling, a 35-point ceiling, and that's it. But he'll play sound defensively. To me, I'd rather take a chance on the guy who could score 50, 60 points in a season. So I like the move for Emerson a lot. That being said, I think that besides that move and the trade, the Talbot trade, I don't really see us doing much at all in free agency because of the cap room we have to kind of save for next season, and because our team is frankly set. I mean, there's really no gaping holes that we really need. I know Alexander Seven today was released, and people said that the Rangers could maybe look for him for like a 2-year deal, like 2.5 per year. That would be a pretty good move for a guy who's a 40-goal scorer. Put him on a line with Zuccarello and Brassard. That'd be pretty fun to watch.
That'd be a really fun line to watch. The only problem I have with that is when the only time that Kreider, Stepan, and Nash were united together, they didn't really have too much chemistry. So I'd rather keep
I'm just saying,
Nash,
sign Seven for cheap and see what he could do.
Right. No, Seven would be a really nice buy low move. Typical say their reclamation project kind of move.
And his advanced stats, whatever you want to call them, the Corsi and something else, they're pretty good.
They're very good.
Yeah.
He's a very underrated player. The only problem is he's not the kind of player who you can rely on. Like, he's a complimentary scorer.
Right.
So
which is what
you don't pay $6-7 million to complimentary scorers.
Nope.
Players like that get like $4.5-5 million. He's like a James Neal kind of player. If you're your third or fourth best forward, which Semin was in Carolina, but he wasn't an elite forward where he was deserving of getting $7 million. He only went down there because they were going to pay him. And the Hurricanes were desperate for a spark, and they hoped that maybe signing Semin, maybe that could have pushed them over into the playoffs, and didn't happen.
No, and now they want to trade off Skinner.
Even a Kreider, Stepan, and Semin line would be filthy. Because Stepan's an excellent passer. Semin would be the recipient of those passes. Kreider still takes a couple of dumb penalties, but he does the board work, and he's the kind of player who's ready to break out any year now. He's getting to the point where he's going to become one of the league's best tweener power forwards soon. I think it would be a great situation. I think there are a lot of options out there for the Rangers to.
Yeah, we'll break it down. What do you want? I know what you want to talk about the free agency. You got the list.
Oh yeah. We got the free agency list right here. We brought up the free agency list for the NBA, so we got the free agency list for the
I feel like there's not
the NHL too.
I feel like there's not as many big-time free agents this year.
No, it's a lot of like second-tier kind of guys.
And I feel like, again, with the Rangers not really being in the market for free agents because the team is pretty much set, and there's really not much to really go around.
The best free agent is Ribeiro, but I glanced over a tweet that had Ribeiro's name in it just now.
Yeah, and Ribeiro's I wouldn't consider him a good player. I mean, it's a very boring free agency period.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing in the NHL really right now is watching the Bruins crumble by trading a franchise defenseman, Dougie Hamilton, and trading Milan Lucic. So I don't know what the Bruins are doing.
What the frig are they doing?
It's just
what is going on? Did you see that they want to go after Brian Bickle? They traded a third for Zach Rinaldo. What are they doing?
A third for Zach Rinaldo had 1 goal last year.
The
new regime is. I mean, Peter Chiarelli, they got rid of him. He won you a cup, got you another cup. I mean, I don't know what they're.
Yeah, I like what Chiarelli's doing in Edmonton a lot.
Chiarelli
I think he had a really great offseason.
Was a Boston guy. Went to Harvard. I mean, I liked him a lot as the Bruins. I think he did a lot of good with the Bruins. Yes, he botched the second trade. But I think you could say the trade he just did. The
Dougie Hamilton deal undoes everything.
It kind of makes that second trade look like not as bad.
Right.
Because that was pretty awful. At least you got Louis Eriksson in return. Yes, I'm not really sure what their goal is. I mean, they're really blowing the whole thing up. They won't be very good at all next year. But yeah, they got 3 first-round picks. They got, I believe, it was 13, 14, 15 in a row. But yeah, it's crazy to see a team go from cup contender to that very quickly. Is there any other free agent stuff you wanted to hit on?
Well, we wanted to answer Vic's question about free agents.
Yes, bring up both. We got Twitter questions, right? I believe Vic.
Yeah, we got Twitter questions. We got a couple.
We got a couple. All right, read them out.
We indirectly answered Eric's question about who the Knicks should spend the cap on.
Well, who they should spend the cap on? They should spend the cap on the top free agents around.
Right, players who are going to
help. If LeBron says he wants to come to New York, he comes to New York. If Kevin Love says he wants to come to New York, he comes to New York. I know you don't like Kevin Love. I don't really love him either, but he's another guy who could score. He'll get you rebounds. He'll get doubles. He'll help.
Well, we need another guy who could score.
I think next player would be, obviously I'm not going to count Gasol. I think Gasol's staying. But if LaMarcus Aldridge does meet with us and he wants to come here, if Melo does everything he can to tell Aldridge, hey, come share the spotlight with me, come get a double every night, lead us to the playoffs. I think that's the move we go for. He's the top feasible option. So if they can get Aldridge is the guy. If their ceiling, range right now, the ceiling is Afflalo, Monroe, and West. For Monroe gets the one big deal with the big money because I think he's a young player who deserves it. And then you kind of just say, we'll add West and Afflalo just as pieces just to fill the gaps and help the team grow. And then we'll wait to see what happens next year with next year is what? Durant, and who else is next year? Is Westbrook 2 years from now?
2 years from now.
So, but I know next year's the big. There's someone else. I think next year's more than just Durant. Anyway, it's a big year. So the point being, you want to sign those 3 players, really keep Monroe for the long term, and have West and Afflalo in the short term, and again have more money for next year's free agency. That's fine. Do I think Aldridge will come here? I don't. Do I think those 3 guys will come here? Yeah, I do. So I guess Eric's answer is who do we want? Who would be the best fit? It would be Aldridge. Right. And so I guess with Jimmy Butler or Kawhi Leonard, I'm not a huge Draymond Green fan. I think he was better in that system, being like the 5th option. But I don't think those guys are really going to go anywhere or they're really feasible to come to New York. So I think the feasible options, the realistic options are Afflalo, West, and Monroe. Who would be the best option would be obviously Aldridge. So that's the answer to Eric's question.
Very, very nice. Vic's question was who are some of the free agents the Rangers should look to sign.
Again, I don't think the Rangers really are in the market for anyone because they're going to lose Hagelin because of money. They got Edom, who could be a top potential scorer. So there you go. Right. There's one guy you add in the mix who has a lot of talent. He's a first-round pick. The Rangers recently have stole a first-round pick from Chicago. Is Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes has been awesome for us. Now we have Edom. We stole him basically from Anaheim after really only 1 year with them. So I think Edom will be good for us. I mean, I mentioned Semin. If Semin get him on the cheap, get him for $3 million or less, put him on a top 6 line and have him score 30 goals. If he could do it, he's not lazy. Awesome. Besides that, I really don't know what else the Rangers need.
No, they don't. Really
everyone's kind of healthy. I mean, you have the defensive core.
When you look at all the buy low kind of candidates, the only guy who would strike me as somebody that the Rangers would sign, thinking of how Glenn Sather works, is maybe Chris Stewart. But the only problem is Chris Stewart is very streaky. His game doesn't really necessarily match what the Rangers do. But he plays right wing, and he could very easily be somebody who could play on the 3rd line with like Etem and Hayes. Or he could play on the 1st line with Kreider and Stepan. He's probably somebody who you can get on the cheap, and getting a Chris Stewart would probably remind me of getting me like somebody like a Benoit Pouliot. So when you look at the right wing options, it's limited. Do you want to pay Justin Williams? I don't think we have the cap space to do it.
I wouldn't want him. He's old.
Do we want to sign Semin? Do we want to sign Stewart? Or do we want to roll with what we have?
I would sign Semin if he was cheap. We get him less than $3 million or less. I'd sign Semin because of his goal potential and goal scores.
Hey, that money would be better used. The Hagelin money would be better used on a guy like Semin because Semin would do one thing that the Rangers have struggled with, and that's finding timely goals. It would take the pressure off of guys like Nash and Brassard, who are primary goal scorers, and it would add another guy who could pot in 20.
It shows you how hard it was with having Zuccarello in the finals. I mean,
the
Eastern Conference Finals.
You
needed him, and now we add a guy. Let's face the fact. Hagelin's a fan favorite. Emerson Edom has a better offensive potential than Carl Hagelin. He has more options to score, more ways to score. He'll do more on the ice on the offensive end than Hagelin. So right now we just upgrade our offense. If we have enough money to get a guy like Alexander Semin who has scored 40 points and he has been, who was awesome. He's one of the best players in the league during times with the Caps.
Right.
If we get him, and he, like Joe said before, he's not relied on as being the guy because we have Nash, we have Kreider, we have Brassard, we have Stepan, we have Hayes. We have even our defensive core. We have McDonough. We don't have guys. We're not going to rely on Seven as much. If Seven's there as a complementary piece, and we get him for $3 million or less, I mean, I'm very happy. And I know a lot of guys like him are very, what do they call them? Like the great pond hockey players who don't really put a lot of effort into it, like Alexei Kovalev disease, I guess you can call it. But
Real G. Okay, I'm not really too sure if real GM should be trusted, but
it could be.
We'll go back to the NBA for a second. Sources: New Orleans, Milwaukee, and the Knicks among teams expected to pursue Portland free agent Robin Lopez.
I like Robin Lopez a lot.
I like Robin Lopez a lot.
It's a great fit. Robin Lopez, if Portland loses Robin Lopez, that's terrible. I think look, for one, I'm happy the Knicks name is in every free agent's list. It should be interested in signing. The Knicks have every single guy. The Knicks have to. Meet, wine and dine, everything, the whole bit. Have Miller call every single person. Have Phil Jackson have the numbers on speed dial. That's your job is. You clear this cap space. Oh, I did a great job last year because you clear the cap space. You go and call every free agent. So I am 100% on board with that. All relative to how much we're going to spend on him. If you spend enough that we have. I mean, we spend little enough that we have money for next year. Great. I don't want to overspend on Robin Lopez. That being said, I like Robin Lopez way more than I like Brook Lopez.
We got another question from Gene. Is Joe Flacco elite?
Joe Flacco is not elite, but yes, and the PFT calendar question. No.
Last question. Joe Timmons sent us a tweet about the Devils.
Oh, yeah?
So we'll touch on it quick. Sure. Any thoughts on the Devils draft and what they will do in free agency? I've been tweeting at him as we've been going. The Devils took Pavel Zacha with the 6th pick of the draft,
right.
2 profiles as a top 6 center. Offensive game is pretty close. Defensively, he's got to learn on the fly. But the Devils' biggest problem, obviously, is they need more forwards.
Right.
So I think in free agency, they maybe not. I mean, they just traded for Kyle Palmieri, too. So the Ducks made multiple moves.
Right. I like Kyle Palmieri.
I like Kyle Palmieri. I would have loved Kyle Palmieri. I would have preferred Kyle Palmieri.
Yeah, it's a good young
Hagelin
player.
Deal,
right,
to be honest.
Because
it would be a lateral move for both teams.
I believe he was a first-round pick as well, wasn't he? Or he was. I'm not sure if he was. I know he played for Team USA in the junior tournament. I know. I think also is Palmieri also is he from Jersey?
Yes, he is. He's from Jersey.
That's what I thought. So I do remember him back in the junior
US.
USA.
Long Island?
I think he's from Jersey. I think he's from Jersey. Yeah,
Emerson
Emerson is from Long Beach, California. He's from that area.
Yeah.
So they're both 2 American guys. The Dutch traded away. I like Kyle Palmieri a lot, so it's a good pickup for them. They need help. The problem with the Devils is this, and with free agency, yes, you have to balance between you're not a destination. The Devils aren't a destination place. Players don't go and say, I want to play for that organization. I don't want to play for the Jersey Devils. You don't think that. So the problem is you have to overpay. So that's that balance you have to find. You have to not overpay, but you have to be able to lure the free agents that don't want to normally come to play in Jersey. That's the whole balance. So I think that's a really tough spot.
Right, so you can't build your team in free agency. You have to build through the draft.
And that's going to take a couple of years. So that's the problem the Devils are in right now. So your best bet is to hope guys like who they
your
just
best
drafted
bet to get you to improve
Palmieri
in the meantime is to probably move a defenseman for a forward. So they got a couple really good ones.
Or just be patient and have the draft picks work out.
Larson's not going to be moved. Severson's not going to be moved. So your best bet is to move either John Merrill or Eric Jelinas for a forward. And they weren't a bad team last year. Corey Schneider's good.
Yes.
They've got a good defense group.
Yes.
They've got a new coach, new GM. I like the Shara move a lot. I think Lou was.
No, they're going the right direction.
They are definitely
and what they're
going in the
doing
right direction.
is smart and is not to overpay and don't do what the Rangers did. Be very patient. Their farm is very depleted, very very depleted, and you have to be very patient and just build it up and start bringing up the guys when you're ready. And look what the Rangers did. The Rangers stopped signing these players to insane contracts. They started drafting right, and they started bringing up these players. And the Rangers were in the Stanley Cup Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals 2 of the last 3 years, 3 of the last 4 years.
Building through the draft is always how it's done.
So honestly, the answer of the Devils,
unless you're the Knicks,
is to be patient, is to be very very patient, and just learn how to deal with this for a couple of years. That's your best bet. You can't really have high hopes. I just watch out. The risk is just don't overpay. This free agent class is not very good, and so don't go out and overpay.
Right. We've pretty much.
Those are all the Twitter questions.
Yeah.
So we did all the sports stuff. Do you want to talk about Little True Detective?
Little True Detective.
A fun segment. We did Game of Thrones a couple weeks back, so we'll always do this. Well, it's a podcast, it's not a sports radio show, so we can talk about whatever we want. We can talk about something that happened in our lives. We can talk about this, and I was tweeting a ton today about True Detective. What have you thought about it?
I thought the first episode was very strong. I thought the second episode was slightly weaker, but if we're taking the complete.
It's a slow show. I mean, so was the
It's
first
a very slow show. A lot of people,
it's 8 episodes, but you're surprised how it moves very methodically. Yeah.
A lot of people don't remember that True Detective, the first season, started out really, really slow. But that's mostly every show. Even like a show like Breaking Bad was very slow the first 2 seasons.
Seasons was very slow, yeah.
The first 2 seasons were really painfully slow. A lot of people don't remember that. But when you look at a show like True Detective, I feel like the first 2 episodes of the second season have been moving a little quicker than the first 2 episodes of the first season.
100% did, and they threw the first 2. You only had 2 characters, so they kind of slowed the pace of showing you the character's background. We kind of see everything about each character in the first 2 episodes.
Right.
With Ray, who's played by Colin Farrell, you know that he's divorced with his wife. His wife is with a new guy. His son was probably a product of his wife being raped.
Right.
And he doesn't want to take a paternity test. We know that he was an LA sheriff, or in the LAPD. He went to Frank, who was played by Vince Vaughn, for help for information of the man who assaulted his wife. We think that he killed the man, or someone who thought, or maybe who he thought was the man. So he has some issues there. Now he's in the Vinci Police Department. Vinci is the fictional town in California, which is it's based off a place called Vernon, California, which is like a population of 100 people, and it's a very industrial town. It has like power plants, and there's like stuff runs through it. About 100 people live there, but it's a very corrupt town. The mayor is super corrupt. He just in cahoots with all the businesses, and that's exactly what Vinci is. So he is basically Ray is basically Frank's pawn in this show, and you see he's a crooked cop, but I guess he kind of means well. The next character is Paul, who's played by Taylor Kitsch, or Tim Riggins, who everyone just calls him. We see that he was burned. We see that he has scars on himself, so he had either trouble from the war, or I think it could be he's kind of part of the whole. There's the waitress with the scars, and you saw the Casper who was killed had the acid burn. So I think there's something weird going on with like the whole religious cult, prostitution ring sort of thing. So he could be involved with that. His mom was very touchy-feely, and she was a dancer in Vegas. So we don't know if they're like almost incestuous. It's very strange. So he has some background. You saw him taking the pills too to enhance his genitalia with his girlfriend. So he has some issues. A lot of people thought he was gay. I think he's more just screwed up in the head from stuff he's lived through. And then the last detective, played by Rachel McAdams, is Antigone. The Greek mythology name. Her sister is also. I'm not sure her sister's name was. But we saw that.
Sister is a.
Well, one of her sisters, and she was doing webcam stuff. The father runs this very, very strange religious cult place, and it was something interesting that I'm detailing the whole show and get into what I wanted to say was I was reading this today was that the father said that the wife and some of the daughters killed themselves in 1978, and I guess maybe they followed his cult because now he runs this whole thing, this commune. And I think the show, season 1 played off of stuff that happened in real life, like mythological stuff and religious stuff, and just stories that Nick Pizzolatto, the writers, read, and the Jonestown massacre from 1978. I don't know if you know about this. This is very strange stuff, but like 909 people, like it was like a ritualistic suicide. Kill something. They were in this religious cult. They all took cyanide and other chemicals that would kill them. They just chose to do that, and that would happen in 1978. And it's just funny that the date set up. It was the same day, like he said, 1978, like in the show. And the wife and the 2 daughters killed themselves then. So, and then he's part of this religious commune. So maybe think that maybe they're a part of something along the lines of that. And Rachel McAdams' character Antigone is just very against it, and she's now she's a cop, and she's a very strong woman, kind of hates men. There's that weird scene with like the boyfriend, and she like.
The introductory scene where we see her with another guy,
and he's very passive, and she's almost more aggressive and saying stuff. He's
looking to figure out what they are, and she's having no part of it, and she says like, we can't do this, and that kind of introduces you to the whole strong, independent kind of vibe that you get from her. And then later in the episode, she travels out to go visit her father. And her father, however you want to describe him, is almost like a preacher kind of.
Yeah, again, he's charged as religious comment. It's a cult. It's a very strange. It's very related to the Jim Jones thing I was saying about with the Jonestown massacre. It was that's a really freaky thing to read about. It's really this season's related to the Greek mythology. It's related to the Jonestown massacre. It's related to the corrupt city of Vernon. Now it's Vinci. So there are these real life things that are coming to play in the show, and I think it's crazy. My guess is that we've seen the murderer, and I think the murderer is either one of these 4 characters, and it's either the father of Antigone, it is the therapist who was played by Rick Springfield, Jesse's girl. The bartender with the scars, or the missing girl from the first episode and I think maybe it's them is because Frank was given the information by.
We have to introduce Frank now.
Well, right, Frank
Frank is played by
he's Vince Vaughn, who people thought were very scared of him playing this role. I like Vince Vaughn a lot in all his movies. I like Vince Vaughn in this role. I think the writing and the lines that not only that he said, but other characters have said about the e-cigarette and the rat thing and killing the rat in the first. It's kind of cheesy. It's not. That's
the biggest problem that I've had so far too. And you're not the only person who said this.
I mean, people are killing it. I mean, Nick wanted to go for that whole McConaughey 2.0 Russ Cole dialogue monologue kind of thing. It's not working. That was Russ Cole. Russ Cole again is one of the greatest characters in television history. Leave it be. Make this a new show. There's 4 main characters. You have a very good plot. It's a very detailed plot. There's a lot of stuff it grabs from real life and religious stuff. I like it a lot. Don't make the show corny, but those dumb lines. So yeah, he's I guess like a small time gangster who kind of made it as a businessman in a corrupt way. He's another guy who's in cahoots with the mayor, like the real life town of Vernon, California. So he has kind of Colin Farrell by the balls, I guess the best way to put it, because of what he knows that Colin Farrell did years back with his wife. So they're in a situation now where he was doing a deal with the rail lines in the city, and the city planner was killed, eyes burned out with acid, and his genitalia was shot off with a shotgun by this like masked, this Raven Crow kind of killer. Yeah. And anyway, so I said the Craven Crow. So Ray Vaccaro, Colin Farrell's character, goes to the apartment, his second apartment, the city planner Casper's apartment, which the information was given to him by a stripper in the club. So the only person who would really know that would be a stripper or a prostitute, which leads me to think the missing woman, like it's almost like a revenge thing, because she must know about it if she was in that that whole kind of, I guess, ring. If she was a stripper or a dancer or whatever, she would know where that is. So I think it's a woman, and the woman who is scarred. In my mind, I think also kind of escaped it as well, and that could be her. There's some way it's all connected, and the weird thing was, if you look in the therapist, like he knows Antigone's father, so I think he's involved in some way, because his whole the facility he was in with the women, they were being treated again. It's kind of strange to see them all the way they were acting. It was very. They know more than they let on. I think they're all connected in some sort of way. But anyway, I think we've seen the killer. The killer's one of those 4 characters. I think it could be a woman because of the whole revenge factor. I don't think he's dead. Colin Farrell's not dead. I don't think he's dead either. They kind of spoiled it. HBO kind of spoiled it by showing scenes and showing that him, like, he was bandaged. There's like pictures of him being bandaged. There's pictures of him with a vest on and with a gun. And so he's not going to be dead. A lot of people think the one weird thing about that scene was that he puts his gun away when he sees the blood. So he like almost, and he was talking about suicide or being killed previously before that, and he's drank every single time they're at that bar. He's drank, and he wasn't drinking then. Right. And then he went to there, and he didn't even, like the car from the first episode was parked out there with the Raven Crow killer was sitting in. You hear the door slam, so the Raven guy is behind you, but he goes into that one door with the see-through mirror, and there's a camera connected to a router. So it's taping something and putting it live right on the internet. And he looks at it and he turns his back to where the front door would be with his gun away, and then he turns around and then that's when he gets shot. Everyone thinks he's dead. I think he's probably shot either with a beanbag or some kind of like rock salt, like they use to injure him, not to actually kill him. And I'm not sure if he was part, if Ray's part of it, if Ray is using that to cover, to make it seem like he's actually dead to get Frank off his case because he wants out. It's a very strange thing. So we left out the season episode 2.
It's mysterious.
And in a really weird spot. And I think the story is really intriguing right now because I think you see the weird background, the weird connection. It's a very religious, a very like sexual type.
Well,
weird
that's what we had in season 1,
right?
Too.
And you see where it's all wrapped, the whole prostitution ring. You see all these dancers. You see where it's very intriguing to me. You have these 4 different parts. And then the best part is like the town itself is so corrupt, and they really want anyone to find out about this. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do next with this season because I like where it's going. They just chill with the cheesy lines.
There were a lot of cheesy lines. A lot of cheesy lines. Oh, what about the line about feminism too?
I missed that.
Oh, when Ray and in the car together
because he has body image issues.
And I forgot what she said. I forgot what Annie said.
Well, I know that he said he's a big fan of feminism because it makes him feel better about his body image issues or something like that.
No, but she said something, and he's like, "Oh, I believe in feminism."
Oh, yeah, right.
It was really funny.
That was
cheesy,
funny.
really
No,
funny.
that was funny. I like the humor. I think like the whole kind of mysterious, very like
it's like dark cheesy humor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. But I mean, that's their
everything
style.
McConaughey said worked.
Oh yeah, no.
Nothing.
Pure weirdo. Everybody thinks he's a weirdo, so it works.
But nothing that these characters have said has it really worked. Besides like the actual main dialogue that's advancing the show. That's
right.
my problem with it. And hopefully, if they diet that out, it'll be better. I think the ball gets rolling now because the Crow killer did shoot Ray, and we're going to find out what's Ray's involvement. It was Ray. Did this person not want to kill Ray because Ray didn't harm them, which leads to the whole revenge thing? Because maybe the person sees, okay, Ray never attacked these prostitutes or whatever, so maybe they didn't kill Ray because of that. Maybe they just don't want Ray intruding on that spot. That could be it. Is Ray, trying to get Frank off his case? That's going to be interesting to see what's Frank's involvement in the whole thing besides just the money. So it's a lot of stuff to see what's going to happen. I think the ball's going to get rolling. I'm very excited for it.
I'm really excited too. But like we said, we're 25% through. Quarter of the way through. There's only 6 episodes left.
Right, it's crazy. Yeah,
it almost feels like there's really not enough time.
Yeah, but but it always ends at work. Like season 1, there were things left unanswered, but you got the gist of it, and the job was kind of done. I think we'll get the same thing of that.
Breaking news.
Here we go.
Brandon Saad to Columbus.
They traded Brandon Saad?
Brandon Saad to Columbus.
Wait, why did they trade Brandon Saad?
I don't know if they traded him or not. I gotta go. I'm on this right now.
Well, he's a free agent.
He's a restricted free agent.
So they put an offer
I just got a text. I gotta hop on the Twitter.
This is our first breaking news segment ever.
This is our very first breaking news.
Well, we can end with this then. So let's just see what that was because Brandon Saad was
they traded him.
Wow, he's basically the Western.
Warren, Trop, Anisimov, and Dano, and a fourth in 2016 for Brandon Saad and a couple of minor leaguers. That's Bob McKenzie.
Wow,
so
it's a massive trade.
The main pieces in the deal, it's a lot for Saad, but
he's like the Western Conference version of like Chris Kreider. He's a big, young,
but now he's in our division.
And be a power, and be a power.
Columbus feel a lot of like same kind of type of players like that.
Dubinsky, Saad, yeah.
Hartnell.
Yep. Johansson, big guy.
But now it's like Saad, Johansson, Atkinson. That's a really nice first line.
Oh yeah.
And then you get Dubinsky and Hartnell on the second line. It's a nice team.
Wow. So that was a shock. So
that's a big time.
So it's good to wrap up. But that's our first breaking news live in it. So our NHL fans.
Saad deal is huge because
very big deal. No, I said it's a very, very, very big deal. I mean, he's a great emerging young player. Just won a cup in Chicago again. So that's I did not expect that. I didn't know they were that cap strapped, but that was big. So yeah, there you go. Our fun True Detective segment. We'll keep up with that. We'll keep up with NHL free agency, NBA free agency, which is tomorrow. By the time this podcast is out, we'll be out later tonight, so you listen to it. But tomorrow this will all be happening. We'll come back and break all that stuff down as we inch closer to MLB playoffs and NFL offseason. We'll get to the fantasy stuff very soon as well. Hopefully the Yankees can turn around, get back in first place. The Mets, their pitching rotation is phenomenal. they need some bats, they need some help desperately. So if they obviously make a move, we'll break that down. So that's all the stuff. Keep tweeting at us. It's at Joe_CalRace92 and at Edward L. Murphy and also at DNS_podcast. Visit the site dishingandswishing.com. Keep tweeting us and your questions. We'll answer them as always. So thanks to Vic, Joe, Eric, and Gene for all the tweets. Any final words, Joe? Besides pray the Knicks get the players we want?
We'll get the players we want. I'm really intrigued for agency. I'm always like, on July 1st, I'm always up really, really. I'm up like 8 o'clock in the morning. It's one of the funnest days of the year.
Oh, sure.
It's like, I would say summer unofficially starts probably like the weekend of Memorial Day, but like when July 1st comes around, it's like summer's really like in like really you got going. It's a nice time of the year, and in a really lull time for sports because it's only baseball on.
Right. Yeah.
July 1st is really nice because I always feel like there's one or two big signings on July 1st, and then it becomes a whole week thing. And
it's still more to talk about when there's not really much going on in the news. Yeah.
It's like big sports days in the summer come few and far between. It's the first day of free agency, first couple of days after, and then there's the MLB All-Star Game, trade deadline. So it's you got to wait a couple of weeks for every big kind of event. But
right.
July 1st is really fun.
Yeah,
and being glued to NBA TV and the NHL Network all day it's something I enjoy doing. So I'm really pumped for it. Keep listening. And
we'll know the Knicks will definitely in the news. So
that
was the reaction. We'll be back. Not as big as a gap next week. So we'll be back very shortly to recap all this stuff. And just keep looking out for any articles we'll have breaking this stuff down. So once again, thanks for all the tweets and questions and support as always. And I guess see you next time.